You arrive at the same place. Your thoughts light up and you could almost see the way to victory. But something keeps holding you back, pinned to the mat. Stuck between where you are and where you want to be. The endless fight with anxiety, the constant body slam of doubts and fears, the ropes seem to be the barrier of tension. What happens if I let go and wrestle through instead of running away?
We are in our last week of the series, Wrestling with God. Next week, we're starting a brand new series called Finding Your Way, and it is the perfect series. If you're one of those people that you've kind of like, hey, I've checked all the boxes, I've really tried to do all the right things, but something is still missing, that series is going to be perfect for you. But as I said today, we're finishing up Wrestling with God, and you can tell even from the title, if you haven't been with us, kind of what we're talking about. And so to dive in this morning, I want to ask you a very simple question, and my guess is you have not spent a lot of time thinking about it, and that's okay. But what is the meaning of life? What is your purpose? If a 10-year-old came up to you, a family member, friend, whatever, 10-year-old come and said, hey, what's the purpose of life? What would you tell them? How would you describe that? I kind of went to ChatGPT and Google and wanted to see, what would they say, and they didn't have a lot of good answers. They had a lot of really bad jokes about it. And if you know me, and if I'm saying it's a bad joke, it is a really bad joke. So I'm going to share two of them with you. You don't have to laugh. It will be awkward, but you don't have to laugh, okay? So one guy said, so what is the purpose of life? He said, I have found that the purpose of my life and a smooth object have a lot in common. Neither one has a point. Yeah, I know. I told you it was a bad joke. It's a bad joke. Another guy said, the purpose of my life is to serve as an example to others on how not to do life, right? Like, nobody seems to have a good answer to this. And I have a feeling I know why. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. Between working 50 hours a week, between trying to be present and engage with your family and your friends, and taking care of all your stuff, your house, your car, your people, whatever, the things going on in your life, the schedule you're trying to keep. I don't have a lot of time to sit around and ponder questions like that. But here's what you do have. At least I'm guessing. You have what I would call a longing. There's something in you that you want things to be better. And it's not selfish. It's not like it's all me, and I just want the best for me. No. You want better. You feel like there should be better. And you don't want it just for you. I mean, you want it for your family. You want it for the people that you care about and love. I mean, honestly, you want it for everybody, right? And I can prove it. It's pretty straightforward. What happens when you hear about somebody that gets some kind of awful illness that really debilitates them and even begins to threaten their life? You automatically, I hate that. I wish that wasn't true. I feel like things should be better than that. You want good things for them. Same way, when you see people that are kind of shady and a little bit suspicious in what they're doing, and they're taking advantage of folks, and they're making it, and they're making a lot of money off of people, and there's other people that are hardworking and honest, and they're the ones that are being taken advantage of. How do you feel about that? We don't like that. That's not right. It should be better than that. Now, let's get personal. When it's you, when you've worked really hard on something, when you've really poured yourself into it, maybe it's your own business, maybe it's a project, maybe it's a passion that you have, you've really poured yourself out for something, and it fails, or it breaks, or it falls apart, or it doesn't work. You're like, it feels like things should be better. It feels like things should be different than that. Yeah, I know in my head that sometimes people run into money problems, and sometimes people run into health problems, and sometimes people aren't sure what they're supposed to be doing, but it just feels like it should be better. And it should be better. Because that inner groaning is pointing at something. And one of the things it's pointing at is the disillusionment that you have. You've kind of gotten disillusioned with the fake promises. Right? There's fake promises that say you'll be content if you buy enough stuff, if you go on enough trips, if you have enough experiences, then you'll be content. Most of you have gotten to the place in your life you realize that's not really true. That's fake. There's another fake promise out there that not only is it about getting stuff, but there's this fake idea that somehow digital and technology can kind of replace whatever it is that's lacking. That if we make enough advances and I get invested enough and if I scroll enough and get on the screen long enough, that can take the place of the hole that I have because I don't have the relationships that I want in my life. And again, most of us have come to the point where we realize that that's fake. There's even the fake explanations, right, of how we even got here. And some of you that are in school, I know school just ended. We got to the summertime. And some of you in school, they're telling you that this is where you came from, that you are a mass of cells, and there's really nothing to you. And kind of the more crass versions of this, the social trending stuff is we're walking meat bags, there's nothing else to us. And it's kind of like, no, that doesn't sound right either. There's fake promises and fake explanations, and we have this longing, and there's a little bit of a groan going on, and like, how did that happen? Now, you probably don't think this way. We have never, in humanity's history, we have never been wealthier than we are right now. We have never been healthier than we are right now. And we have never been more productive than we are right now. So why are people walking around empty without an answer to what is the purpose of life? Now, here's Brett's very simple summary version. You can like it, don't like it, whatever, but this is my opinion on what I see happening out there when I talk to people, when I think about my own life, when I follow stuff just like you do on social or online or whatever. Here's what I have kind of landed on, and this is all it is my opinion, so you can throw it away. But we have been trying to find the point of life without God. How can I figure out life without God? I want to leave God out of things, and I just want all good things. So we've been trying to find the point of life without God, and we're finding that life without God has no point. There's nothing to tie it back to. There's nothing to root it in. There's nothing that's stable when other things are shaking. When life is built without God, it doesn't seem to have a point. And while that is in one sense very frustrating, there's a part of it that's really encouraging to me. Because Gen Z, that's the 13 to 28-year-olds. And when I tell you this, you may decide, hey, maybe I want to be Gen Z too. But Gen Z has kind of started to stake their own little rebellion. They have kind of started pushing back against this idea that there's no soul, that it doesn't matter, that we can do whatever we want, and that if we get enough stuff and do enough stuff, we'll feel good about ourselves. They've started to push that back. They're kind of spitting out all the fake stuff, and they're looking for real. They're tired of knowing that they should have better and should live better, but it's not actually happening. And they're starting, like I said, to push back, and maybe you feel that too. And if you do, that's a good thing, but let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to run into some tension. Because there's a whole world and a system set up to tell you that that's not how you find life, meaning, and purpose. It's not by paying attention to your soul. It's by paying attention to these other things. And that fits so well with where we've been for the last several weeks, right? We've been talking about this idea of wrestling and wrestling with tension. And I know it's kind of cutesy and everything else, but the statement we've used is wrestling with tension redirects our attention. I can wrestle against God or I can wrestle with God. But I'm definitely going to have tension in my life either way. And so if I wrestle with God against the tension, what happens is it forces me to start paying attention to something else. It's the opposite of the shiny things syndrome, right? You can just kind of wave shiny things. Like if you have a dog, you can shake your keys and they get excited and what's going on. You know, the world does that to us in some ways. It kind of shakes its keys at us to get us to look away and to get distracted and to forget. And all the time, there's this tension. But there should be something better. There should be something that's a little more fulfilling. There should be something that has a little more purpose to it than what I have experienced. Well, the good news is we are not the first people to encounter this. As a matter of fact, if you've got a Bible, there's a book of the Bible called Micah. It's in the Old Testament. It's one of the smaller books in the back half of the Old Testament. And in Micah 6, if you want to follow along or you've got the app, you can find it there. But in Micah 6, we run into this group of people that had made a wrong assumption about life. And it was causing deep frustration in their lives. And our situation parallels actually really closely to theirs. Because they thought life was one way. And they were living with everything they could in that direction. And it just wasn't working. And so we're going to read in just a moment. And we're going to read some of the questions they were asking. And as we read these questions, listen along and see if you can kind of understand some of their thinking and where they were at. Micah chapter 6, verse 6. It says this, "With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings and a calf a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 rams and 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul. They were asking questions that was based on an assumption. They had made an assumption that life and meaning was a contract. There's a contract here. Like, they were religious, so their contract was with God. Listen, God, we will do all the things that you say. We'll check all the boxes, and you will then give us the meaning-filled, purpose-filled life that we really want. There's a contract. And we're upholding our end, God. We'll go ahead, and like I said, we'll check the boxes, we'll fill the buckets, we'll do the stuff, and you need to give us the life we want. It's a contract. And it's easy. It's easy to look at that and say, well, you know, that's a long time ago. They were thinking wrong. Obviously, it was a mistake. And, you know, nobody else does that today. And for some of you, maybe even just depending on your background and your world, you might be, yeah, that's what religion does. It kind of sets you up to fail. It makes you feel like you got to do all these things and you're guilty and it never pays off. And it's easy to be a critic and think of them as simple or think of them as kind of religious fanatics or whatever the case may be. They had a contract in their mind and it didn't work out and it brought frustration. But a lot of us have a contract too. We call it the American dream, right? It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Like, everybody knows this. No matter where you come from, no matter what's happened, and I'm not anti-American, don't hear that, but I mean, no matter what your worldview is, whatever, if you come and you work hard, it doesn't matter about your background. You can work hard, you can make some money, you can get a nice house, you can get a new car, you can go on vacation. That's the deal. You come and you work really hard, and you get all this stuff, and you should have a great life. That's the way it goes. Never mind. Don't look at what it costs to do that. Don't look at the stress and the anxiety and the exhaustion from working so much. Don't look at the stack of debt that you have that you've tried to borrow your way into this life. And don't pay attention to all the family fractured relationships that have been broken and in some cases even lost because you've been pursuing all this stuff. Just stick to the script and you will be wealthy and you will be healthy and you will be productive and you should have a great life. That's the deal. There's a problem with a contract. Every contract. Contracts ignore your soul. They completely ignore your soul, who you are at the core. And you would think, we know better than that, right? We know you can't do that. But so many of us, we sign up for the contract, but it ignores our soul. I mean, I'm sure it'll work out, which, again, is crazy because you have a body, a mind, and a soul, right? Everybody knows that. You get that. And you also know you can't ignore your body. Like, you have to feed it. You have to take care of it. You have to sleep. When there's stuff wrong with it, you need to get it fixed. I mean, if you completely ignore your body and ignore your health, what happens? It gets damaged. And sometimes it gets severely damaged. You can't do that. You can't just ignore it forever. Same way, mental health. I mean, it's been great that there's been such an emphasis on mental health and how am I thinking and what am I thinking about and how do I see other people and how do I deal with anxiety and stress and depression and things like that. We know you can't ignore that. That's too dangerous to ignore kind of what's going on in your head and the emotions and in your heart. You cannot ignore that. But for some reason, we've kind of accepted this idea that you can ignore your soul. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We sign up for the contract that leaves our soul out of it, and we wonder how come our life seems to not be what we wanted. You will not fill the hole in your soul by ignoring it. You won't fill it. As a matter of fact, it actually gets worse. If you read, and I would encourage you later to continue to read Micah chapter 6 because he touches on so many things that are completely relevant to our world. But in verse 14 and 15, he talks about a few things where he's like, this is what happens when you live with an empty soul, and it is so eerily descriptive of how we experience life so often. They talk about it this way. They say, you eat, but you're still hungry. You save, but you never have enough. You do the hard work of planting, but you never get to harvest. You work hard and you really put yourself at it, and in some reason you never seem to get ahead. It just keeps coming up empty. No matter what you do, no matter what you buy, no matter what experience you get, it keeps coming up empty. That is hole in your soul living. And yeah, you can change out the phrasing and you can change out the variables, but for a lot of us, we can identify with that. And even if we can't, we know somebody that we love, that's close to us, that's exactly what they're dealing with. They bought into a contract They've ignored their soul, and it's left a hole in them. It's why they can't ever seem to find any kind of purpose or meaning or fullness of life. And that's not where God wants you to be. There's actually some really good news, and it comes in the next verse. In Micah chapter 6, verse 8, he tells us, this is how you can move out of this situation. This is how you can get past the contract. Micah 6, verse 8, he has shown you, it's talking about God, he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. He's happy to tell us. He's told us before. And I know why a lot of times we discount it, because we hear it, we think, well, that's too simple. Oh, that's too religious. That's too basic. I mean, life's more complicated than that. For whatever reason, whether it's too simple or it's too religious, whatever, we didn't really hear it the first time. Or maybe we heard part of it, but we didn't hear all of it. And he's happy to tell us again. God's not mad at us. He's not angry. He's telling you, listen. I want you. I really want you to have a full and meaningful life. So even though I've said it many times before, I will say it again. I'm happy to tell you again how it happens. It happens first by walking humbly with your God. And I know you come to church and they say you walk with God. I mean, you're not surprised, but think about this. God himself is saying, walk with me. Do you want meaning? Do you want purpose? Do you want your life to count? Do you want to fill up that hole in the middle of you? Walk with me. There's a key word in there. It's humbly. Walk humbly with your God. Align yourself to his will. Now, I'm guilty of this. Maybe you are too. Sometimes I try to get God to align with my stuff. Like, here's the things I want to do. God, if you could just come in and make them happen, that'd be great. Walking humbly with God is different. Walking humbly with God says, God, what do you want? Where are you going? I'm going to follow you. I'm going to quit thinking that I know better. I'm going to quit putting my priorities ahead of yours, and I'm going to trust you. I'm going to walk humbly with you. And that's where it starts. Because this isn't a contract. What you're going to find is there's 3 relationship components, and that first relationship is your relationship with God. And when you're walking humbly with God, you're beginning to close that hole in your soul, and you're starting to find meaning and purpose. But there's 2 more components. The next one, he says, is to love mercy. Love mercy, which that sounds a little nebulous, like love mercy. What does that exactly mean even? It can mean a lot of things, but maybe I can frame it this way for you. Think for a minute about all the people in your life that you see on a regular basis. Your family, people that live in your home, your friends, people you work with, your next door neighbor, whatever your situation is. Just the people that you're rubbing shoulders with on a regular basis that you think of as, these are my people, right? These are the ones that I know me, that I care about, they care about me. These are my people. One of the ways you love mercy is when you think about those people, you take a very specific approach to those relationships. It's not, what do I get from my spouse? What do I get from my kids? What do I get from my parents? What do I get from my friends? It's, what can I give to my parents, my friends, my kids, my spouse? And I know at first you might think, wait a minute though. That would put you in a spot where people could take advantage of you. Like if you put their interests first, if you actually kind of prioritize them over yourself, I mean, they could take advantage of you and you might end up losing out and you might end up, yeah, you might. But God, who knows you better than anyone, loves you better than anyone, is telling you if you want to find purpose and meaning and you want your life to feel full and rich, this is how you do it. You put other people first. You worry more about what you can give than what you can get. And you pursue their interests, not your own. That's loving mercy. But there's one other component here. So he says to act justly. So we've talked about your relationship with God, and we've talked about your relationship with your people. Acting justly is your relationship with everybody else. The Bible talks about it a lot as your neighbor, being a good neighbor, acting justly. Again, what does that mean? It means a couple of things at least. When you encounter somebody that's in a more vulnerable position than you are, you do something about it. You assist them. Like, not only do you not take advantage of people, you actually try to help them get an advantage. When you come across things that are wrong, you do everything you can to set it right. You do right by other people. You willingly sacrifice if it helps someone else. That's what it means to act justly. So you have these three relationship components: how I connect with God, how I connect with the people right around me, and how I interact with the people out in the world that I've rubbed shoulders with. And God says, if you do this, you will have a meaningful, purpose-filled life. Why? Why? Because, just, being a little bit of a cynic here, you could pull back and say, so you're basically just saying be nice and follow God? Like, that's it, and I'll have a great life if I'm nice and I follow God? Think of it this way. This is just the frosting on top of the cake. Underneath, there's something more. It's not to minimize walking with God or doing justice or loving mercy. Those are incredibly important, but that's what you see on the outside. What's going on the inside is incredibly deep and even more profound, much more profound. You see, God told us what our purpose is. Right at the very beginning, the first few pages of the Bible, in the account of creation, Genesis 1:27, there's a phrase there, and it says that God created the male and female in his image. Our purpose in life is to reflect his image. He created us in his image, and it makes so much sense if you again, step back just a little bit and think about it. God deeply wants a relationship with you, so much so that he gave up his son to right the wrongs, to bridge the gap, that he wanted to be reconciled with you. Even if you had treated him like you were his enemy, he wants to treat you like a friend. He so deeply wants a relationship with you. So God wants to walk with you. And God doesn't just love, God is love. It's not something he does, it's who he is. And God has promised that he will set the world right, that he will do justice. So now all of a sudden, if I'm in his image, if you're in his image, that imprint, that thumbprint, if you want to think of it that way, if you're a computer person, that operating system has been hardwired into you, that you are going to be like your Father. And therefore, it makes so much sense. Why does loving mercy, acting justly, and walking humbly with God, why does that bring me fulfillment and meaning and purpose? Because I bear the image of God. He stamped it inside of me. And when I do anything but that, don't miss this, I feel empty. I feel like something's missing. There's a hole in my soul that I can't really explain. And I can't experience my way out of, entertain my way out of, distract my way out of, or somehow cover over the guilt out of. That hole in my soul. But when I understand and realize that I am in the image of God and I live that out, it changes everything. It changes the way I see God. It changes the way I see you. It changes the way I see myself. See, recognizing his image, that refines my purpose. Now I want you to do something strange for just a second. It's okay because I'm asking you to do it so nobody's being creepy. Take like 10 seconds. I want you to look around and try to make eye contact with 3 or 4 other people. Just go ahead, look around, make eye contact with somebody, look around. Some of you are like, I'm not doing it. Just do it. Look around. Every person you just saw bears the image of God. He's put his thumbprint on them. He has stamped them. And not only does that make them incredibly valuable, but it means something else. Because not only do you live out the image of God in you, you've been invited to draw the image of God out of them. You not only live it out, you get to draw it out. You probably heard of Martin Luther King. You probably know some of his famous statements and big civil rights leader and all of that. I came across one of his other kind of statements that's a little bit lesser known. And I thought it was really interesting. And it's very long, so I'm not going to be able to quote it all from memory. But he was talking about his funeral. And I don't know if he had a premonition or whatever. It was only a few months before he was actually assassinated. And he talked about it, and he said something kind of curious. He said, when I die, and you have the funeral, I don't want whoever's giving the eulogy, I don't want him to talk about awards that I've won or things that I've done. He goes, what I hope is that they can honestly, with integrity, say that Martin Luther King tried to help people. That he tried to serve people. He tried to feed hungry people. That he saw it as his role to serve humanity. which sounds really virtuous and altruistic. And you hear that and you might think, well, yeah, he's a better person than we are. I don't think so. I think what happened is Martin Luther King understood that he was imprinted, that he bore the image of God, and he wanted to live that out, and he wanted to draw it out of other people. And it made an incredible difference in how he lived his life, which is wonderful and amazing for a famous person and somebody that everybody heard of and everything else. What about regular, normal people? My wife, Donna, does an amazing job at this. She just kind of intuitively, and if you asked her, first of all, she's too humble to say that she does it, and honestly, she wouldn't even say that she consciously thinks about it. But she comes home from work about every 2 weeks, and she'll tell me stories about what happened at work today. She's in the medical world, and so she sees patients and all that stuff. And she'll tell me about this person or that person, that situation, and none of you. So if you've ever seen her, she doesn't tell me about your stuff. Most of the time, it's moments where she had an opportunity to connect with somebody, because that's what really matters to her. Just a couple of months ago, she told me a story. A lady came in. She came in for her appointment. She was sick, something, whatever was wrong, I don't know. And as Donna's talking to her and kind of trying to get her history and understand, and what can we do and how can we help you and all of that, she notices the lady's pretty upset. And it doesn't take very long before it comes out. She had just found out that her sister was going into hospice. I think that day, I don't know. And she was just devastated, because she knew that meant most likely her sister was passing away soon. And so you can imagine she's already got her own medical issues, and she's just found out that she's losing her sister. And she's in this moment where she is hurting physically, emotionally kind of torn. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say, she loved her sister, she cared about her sister. It just kind of tore at her soul. This is real stuff. This is serious stuff. And like I said, I don't even think Donna would say it this way. But she's sitting there recognizing that I have the image of God in me. And this person in front of me is also an image bearer of God. And so she's listening to this person, and she's listening to God, and she realized, I've got to do something. Because giving her a prescription and sending her on her way is not the answer to what she needs today. And so she listened to this image bearer pour out her heart and her sorrow. And a lot of it was her fear. She listened to her as she talked about her needs and what wasn't right and what needed to be different, what was wrong with her health. And she saw the opportunity to draw out the image of God in this person who sat in front of her. And as she listened to her, and she counseled her, and she cared for her, and she hugged her, and she prayed for her, she left different than she came in. Her sister's health had not changed. Her health wasn't immediately better. But that opportunity to connect with someone who bore the image of God and drew the image of God out of them changed how she saw herself, changed how that day went. And so you could see, for her, for that patient, you can understand, okay, she probably left feeling a little bit better, feeling a little bit more supported, a little more cared for, a little more valued, and that's wonderful. But my wife came home and told me the story with a spark in her eye, because she knew she made a difference in somebody's life. That is whole soul living. This is what we're talking about. This isn't about doing nice things for people so that we can get good grades or, have other people think well of us. This is living out the image of God that has been imprinted in you, so you live it out and then you draw it out of other people. Have you ever heard of Gorilla Glass? Gorilla Glass is the stuff that goes on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever the case may be. It goes on there, and it's touch sensitive, but it's super strong. It's why when you're like me and you drop your phone, your screen doesn't break every time, because it's made out of Gorilla Glass. Now, I did not know this. Gorilla Glass was actually not invented for devices. I would have figured, about 2008 when the smartphones came out and everything else, that's probably when it happened. Nope. Did you know Gorilla Glass was invented in 1962 by the Corning Company? Like 1962. I don't even know if they had microwaves yet. That was a long time ago. And somebody designed and created and made this Gorilla Glass, and they put it on the shelf because they're like, one day, we're going to need this for something. We don't know what. And then in 2008, they finally figured out the purpose of Gorilla Glass. Works great for electronics. maybe you feel a little bit like Gorilla Glass today. Like, I know I have a purpose. I know there's something supposed to be going on. I know my life is supposed to count for something. I just don't know what it is. I didn't really know even until today. I had no idea. Well, maybe just like with the release of the smartphones in 2008, today is your release day. You know what your purpose is now. And we're celebrating a fake thing we made up today called Start of Summer. There's popsicles, there's an ice cream truck, we're wearing our summer clothes, the whole thing. It's just fake, it's for fun, but your life is real. Your life is real. And I don't want you to leave today without plugging into this idea that it can be fulfilling. You can find meaning. And the thumbprint, the imprint of God is on your life. You bear his image. And if you were to kind of take the mindset that every day when I wake up, I have the opportunity to show the image of God, to live out the image of God, and let other people see it, and then draw out the image of God in the people I come across, all of a sudden, you have all the purpose you need. You have all the important work you need to do. You have all the opportunity anyone could ever want to live a meaningful and purposeful life. But for some, we're like, that all sounds great. I just don't know how to do it. How do I connect with that? We want to help you. And so in just a minute, Pastor Corey's going to come and tell you, and we've got some guests that are with us in the lobby, the places you can find, from anything as simple as praying with someone and writing to someone, all the way down the line to, kind of disaster relief and helping muck out somebody's house after a flood. There's all kinds of ways you can do this. And we've brought some partners that we know and trust and love. I would encourage you to stop by and see them as you're eating your popsicle and find out about drawing the image of God out in other people. And if that's too far and too much, there's a table for our church as well. If you say, well, I want to start right here. I want to start with the people that I sit in this building with and worship God with. I want to draw out the image of God in them. You can do that as well. And so I want you to take a moment and watch this video and just learn a little bit about some of the partners that are going to be here that you have an opportunity to partner with, to not only live out the image of God, but draw it out in other people. This is what I love about our church. I love that our church has this longing and this desire to be the hands and feet, to make a difference. Because what we know about the church is not this building that you and I gather in every week. The church is you and I, the people locking arms with one another, desiring to make a difference in our world. And so I want to encourage you this morning, as Pastor Brett said, we have some partners that are in the lobby. I would love for you to stop by their tables and find a way that you can get involved, a way that you can serve and make a difference, to allow God to use your uniqueness, your gift, your passion to help people to come to know, to follow, and love Jesus the same way that I do. So I hope today that as a next step, you would actually do that. Because, as I said, we're making a difference because of you. We partner with an organization like New Life Pregnancy Center, where we help start their center and we help fund their budget every year, and we also send volunteers to serve. Rio Vista, some of you, maybe this past November, you were part of Turkey Day, where you went and you handed out food to thousands of people to help provide them with Thanksgiving. For others, maybe you're part of Crossroads and you're riding inmates and helping to disciple so that they can come to know and to follow Jesus. But either way, I want to encourage you this morning, step up. Be a part of making an impact, making a difference, allowing God to use you the way that he created you. Because as Pastor Brett said, he created you in his image for a purpose. And so he wants us to live on purpose. As part of our worship, one of the things that we do here every week is we give. And if you'd like to give, you can give online, you can give through the app. You can also give in the offering boxes on the way out. When you give, it does help us make a difference. It helps us to partner with these organizations, to be more than just a mouthpiece, but to put our money where we say we're passionate about and our manpower where we say we're passionate about. So I encourage you, give and help be a part of the mission of bringing people back to God. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that when you leave, that you'll grab some ice cream, an Otter Pop, and stop by a table and see somebody today. Thanks for being here. Have a great week. We'll see you next weekend.